Hi, welcome back and Happy New Year 2020. I wish you all the best. I hope you had really amazing holidays. Today we have the pleasure in this new year to welcome Ellie. Ellie will be talking about a very interesting and niche arts field, which is medical illustration or scientific art. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ellie.
Thank you for having me. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, cool. So, the first question is can you tell us a little bit more what is scientific art or medical illustration?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. It's a great question because it's a really interesting topic, and I'm happy to be able to share some thoughts on it. So, it comes down to a question of terminology, I think. So, scientific illustration is part of science communication, which is all about communicating science, as it sounds, to different target audiences. So we can break this down in different ways. We can talk about I would say biological illustration is sort of the grander category of technical illustration to explain biological structures, functions, etc. And then we can talk about what I would like to focus on, if that's okay, is medical illustration. So how, in biomedical communication, how do you communicate aspects of anatomy, physiology, as well as microbiology, all the interactions that happen in your body and all the processes? How do you communicate that? And the best way to do that is to really deeply understand science and also have strong principles in art and design. And that's what it means to be like a biomedical illustrator and communicator.
Yeah. So. How did you become a medical illustrator? What's the story behind?
Yeah. Thank you for asking, because it's a rather niche thing. You know, I was looking into the numbers and I see that there's only 2,000 approximately globally of medical illustrators. So this is a very specialized field. And so I'm not super active in it right now, but I'll tell you a little bit about how that evolved and how that happened. But basically, there's only 5 accredited programs in North America, I believe. And there's one that I've just heard about in the Netherlands. But the idea is that you go to a master's program that's, in my case, was called Biomedical Communications at University of Toronto. And you study within the Institute of Medical Science with all the doctoral students who will go on to become doctors. And you're studying anatomy and physiology, embryology, radiology, so many ologies. And before that, I should back up and say it's really good to have a strong foundation in science and art. So you have to apply to the program and really prove that you have a foundation in science and abilities in art to communicate. So once you're in this program, then you're deep into anatomy and you actually have the opportunity to do dissection and study with all the other future doctors and wonderful faculty there. It was an absolutely enriching experience. And then you have a chance to work in hospital settings, and then you really get into surgical illustration and how to use illustration to help researchers, doctors, other health consultancy agencies to produce meaningful content that's targeted at different audiences. And then in my case, I went on to work in science publishing in San Francisco for quite a while.
Yeah, but what made you actually choose this very niche field?
Well, I always loved to draw since I was a small child, and that was a huge passion. And I love to draw what's real and what's around me. I think that's really a wonderful and satisfying challenge when you can see something and depict it. I also found a deep interest in science later in my life, and so I kind of merged those two together. And I think anatomy is fascinating because it's just inside of everyone. So I guess that was sort of a perfect merger of these two areas of interest. And then I now see what kind of possibilities there are when you can. It's really about translating data and facts into a beautiful creative narrative story, and that can happen via animations and interactive media. There's so many possibilities with it.
Well, I'm actually just curious, and that's really something that just popped to my mind right now. Like, what idea did you have about that field before you entered it, and then what surprised you after like you spent few years working as a medical illustrator?
Yeah. So.
Or what did you learn? Also?
Okay. So I would say. So I first tackled it from the sort of scientific illustration perspective. So I was really interested in natural forms and plants, animals, that kind of thing. But then I found that I was thinking practically, like, well, where can you work with that, and what can you do? And I dabbled a bit in museum work, and when I found out about this graduate program, I thought that actually sounds super relevant and super applicable to many different international possibilities. And so let's see. So then when I was there, I would say it's hard to summarize learnings.
Of course,
it was incredible. It was such a deep experience to be exposed to, like I said, the cadaver dissections. It's humbling. It's amazing. You realize the complexity of the human body. And I also have such respect for doctors, how much amounts of knowledge they need to accumulate to get through these exams and then become doctors who are in service of the health of humanity. Like, it's kind of massive. So yeah, that was sort of an awakening.
Yeah. And who was actually paying you? Who was employing you?
Okay. So then we're jumping ahead. Right. So you wanted to talk about that. Right. So the possibilities are quite broad with that kind of education. I mean, you could work for a consultancy that's creating like installations where people are, like, I just saw one that was a blood vessel that people can walk through and understand their arteries and their circulation and what that means to them. Or you could be developing health gaming apps for people to deal with different conditions. Or you could be doing, in my case, it was animations and storytelling for anatomy and microbiology. So I was working with the world's biggest publisher, but they're like science division. So we were creating books and media products that would teach everything that a doctor or nurse would need to know. So that's just one sort of more traditional way to go, but there are many different possibilities of, like I said, sort of interactive media that teaches about science and medicine. Yeah.
And for example, like when you are talking about games, that's used like medical illustration or like this
or simulations too, like VR simulations, that would be like a really interesting. Sorry to cut you off.
No, sure. Or like this VR simulations. Who is usually like the companies or like who is behind that? Is it the state and insurances, or is it more?
So it really could be a medley of possibilities, whether that's medical device manufacturer or an insurance company or a startup that's building some cool app. I mean, there's a lot of different potential employers of those people or possible, because I was looking into it and I was seeing that like the global market for medical animation is already like $300 million, which is like
$300 million.
Yeah, so that's like, I don't know, it's significant, but that's only medical animation. There could be so many other, and it's expected to be like $500 million in the next 5 years. So that means it's growing steadily. Because I think if you think about like medical education too, doctors, I was reading some articles about what medical students are, how they learn, right? And how they learn can't only be traditional lectures and traditional books anymore. Like people, if you look at how we all interact with technology, we have higher expectations, we have more interactive expectations. So I think to educate the whole workforce of future doctors, there's going to be a push towards VR simulations, and that's going to drive up that interest as well. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it sounds like really very exciting and growing
market. You have been working in the US and then you moved to
Yeah.
Europe, you know?
Right.
I don't want to ask you what made you move, but like, what's the difference between working in this field in the US and Europe?
Well, so I can only really speak from personal experience. I don't mean to like project on sort of the larger public, but I would say, in my experience, like in North America, it's just a lot bigger of a market. There's a lot of big art house studios and production of high level medical art, animation, interactive. It's a bigger industry, and I haven't seen it as what I've seen here is more independent illustrators who are maybe freelancers, and so. And if you look at kind of the history, I think I see this all connected. Like, even though you look at the roots of medical illustration and it began back in the time of, you could say maybe the Renaissance with Leonardo da Vinci, and then really like Andreas Vesalius is like the godfather of medical illustration, and he did the first anatomy book, and then how things evolved later in like the 19th century. You have like Max Breudel. He is an amazing artist from Leipzig, Germany, and he goes over to the US and starts at Johns Hopkins University this medical illustration department, and that launches then future schools in the US. So you can see that even though things began in Europe, they shifted, they moved, and this large industry in North America developed, including like also Canada, where I went, and that remains. So there is a history here in Europe. It's morphed, and I don't claim to be an expert on like the scene here. I would say that what piques my interest is now the digital health startup scene here in Germany, particularly in light of like this new Digital Care Act and what that will enable more creativity with digital health, with simulations of health, with helping people with their conditions, and using possibly medical illustration or creativity to convey scientific facts that people need to know, that you know, that relate to them. So I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, I mean,
but I just see this
no.
geographical historical connection, you know.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, you mentioned that it's bigger in the US compared to Europe.
And then I think the Asia Pacific market would be next. I think goes North America, Europe, Asia Pacific.
Yeah. And where do you see actually this medical illustration or scientific arts markets going or trending in the future?
Well, I can't totally predict the future, as we know, but I would say there's a huge amount of new research to explain complexity to people in different ways. So there will continue to be molecular visualization and health gaming and patient engagement that will need to engage people in their health and their bodies. So I think there will just be growth in this area as people want to understand what's going on, and as technology advances to visualize for us what's happening in our bodies and perhaps rare diseases, and there's just a huge amount of data that now we might want to, from sensors and everything, we might want to visualize that in new ways and in a meaningful way that people can do something with that information, or understand public health better, or so I see a lot of potential for sure.
I'm also like excited about the whole field. Do you have any last word advice to anyone who is either interested in working in this field, learning more about it? Maybe you can share.
Yeah, I would say pursue your interests. Don't be concerned if you think you can't see a connection yet between something in science and something in art, because it's probably there. We were just talking earlier about biomimicry. There's so many potential areas of study and pursuits. So I would say enhance your creativity, give it a chance, see where it's going to take you and how you can apply your skills in different industries.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will be linking more like the details of Ellie if you want to get in touch with her. Also, if you have any comments, if you have worked on a project in science and art, I would love actually to hear what you have done in that field. So thank you very much and stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, yeah.